What's going on, everybody? Coach Mike here with another episode of Strength Coach Thoughts Podcast. So, if you like the headbands I'm wearing, they are vertical athletics headbands, nice and thin, nice and thick width. They are active cooling headbands. So, as you sweat, you wring it out, you shake them around, they get cooler on your head as you work out. So, they help keep you cool in the Texas heat on the glorious day that is Big Friday today, baby. If you don't celebrate the holiday of Big Friday, it is a national, international, worldwide. There's aliens up in space celebrating Big Friday, where everybody comes together and we max the fuck out, baby. It's Big Friday. Come on. So, as always, before we get started, cheers. Let me get nice and close for you. Ooh, it's a little tight one. Hold on. All right, ready? Cheers. Listen to that. Is there a greater sound in the world? Ah! All right, good morning. So, what am I talking about today? Other than you should be doing Big Friday. Everybody should be doing Big Friday. All these people that are like, oh, max out every week, blah, 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 progress. Get the fuck out of here. Weightlifting as a sport is about lifting the most weight you can over your fucking head. All right, I guess today's going to be a swearing podcast. I don't know. We'll see if I get what happens with YouTube. But Big Friday is about going ham. We are throwing slabs of beef on the bar, throwing it over our head until we can't anymore. And if you're not doing that, you're missing out. You are missing out on your progress as a lifter, on the mental game. You're missing out on the physical benefits. You are missing out. All these coaches that are technique first and blah, 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 just lift weight. It is weight lifting. Lift weights. It's all you need to do. You have 5 other days of the week if you're lifting every day of the week like you should be, not doing this 2 or 3 times a week nonsense. If you are lifting every day like you should be, one day out of the week of max effort, max out, should not be that bad on your program. All right. So that's not what I'm talking about today. That is what I can talk about, but we're not talking about that today. What I'm talking about today, as most of you know that follow this podcast, back in January, February, whenever it was, when Elon Musk did the whole government budget cuts and all that nonsense, I lost my job with the military as a strength and conditioning coach. And because of the location I live in, there's really nothing else available for me. So now I work at a private corporate gym as a trainer. And I did want to start talking about today lessons that private training can learn from strength and conditioning, and then lessons strength and conditioning can learn from private training. Now, when I say private training, I understand there's a difference between athletic performance, private facilities, and big global box gym, commercial gym, cross shit boxes. If High Rocks has boxes now, I don't know what the hell's going on with that, but I know there's differences between them all. And as a strength coach, I think as many strength coaches, the perception we have of personal trainers is very low. I think of personal training in these corporate settings or these box gyms. Obviously, CrossFit has their own problems. Some sports performance places are good. Others are just gimmicks and sports specific, which I did do a podcast on. Make sure you check that one out. But I was listening to another podcast, those Strength Coach Network, Cheeky Midweekly, where they were at the NSCA conference and they were doing a hot takes conversation. And one thing that came up was fraudulent coaching, where people are paying, like parents are paying for their kids to go to these facilities and do gimmicky nonsense that doesn't work. And I heard that, and that is definitely my perception from strength and conditioning coming to the private sector. I started in private sector as a sports performance facility. It was half gimmicky, half true. Very heavy in the sports specific stuff, but the sports specific stuff that was advertised was just general strength training with sports specific marketing around it. So I guess the gimmick was more in the marketing, not so much the training. But you do see, like, people on Bosu balls doing balance training and doing all this nonsense, right? And that's all that's gimmicky. That is stuff that not even based on the research, just based on common sense, has absolutely no value to that individual. So, what I have come to learn working in the corporate box gym setting is that a lot of the trainers, it's not the trainers that are the problem. The one I work with is partnered with NASM, and every strength coach in the world knows how terrible NASM is for all various reasons, right? So I'm not going to get into them, but we all know why they're terrible, how they're terrible. Social media influencer, $500 certification for reasons. They're not science backed. All their claims are bogus. But in the NASM model, they have the OPT model, the optimal performance training or something. I don't know what they call it. Sets and reps are all wrong. Volume and intensity, volume is all wrong based on actual science. So, like, their methodology is wrong based on the actual science we know. This is not philosophy based. They're just wrong on principle. But a lot of their exercises, right? So they do their corrective exercise, they do stability phase, all that nonsense. A lot of the stuff they advocate for is gimmick. So the organization I'm with now, we are mostly required to follow the NASM OPT model. So we'll have older people doing shoulder press on BOSU balls because that's what NASM wants us to do. Now, obviously, I'm not putting my name on that. I do not condone that behavior. I've been very outspoken about that within the company I'm with. And there are hopefully changes coming down the line about that. But it made me understand. It made me realize that the trainers we see on Instagram at these gyms, I don't know if it's their fault or if it's a product of the organization they're affiliated with. For example, like, we are technically required to follow the NASM OPT model based on the program that we use, the software we use for programming and everything. That is not a good model. That is not a good program for anybody. But the trainers are bound to that. Now, the rationale I get for that is that we have a lot of young trainers within these corporate settings or even the sports performance private setting. It could be any uncertified person that can get a job there. Within my organization, we do require them to at least purchase a NASM certification within so long of being hired, and then pass it within so long of being hired before they start training clients. I mean, they're not receiving clients until they pass the certification unless they have a degree, which that's all fine. But the reason that's been cited for me that they do that is because it puts everybody on a level playing field. It puts everybody in a standardized program. I don't disagree with that. I do not disagree with that at all. I think it is really good to have a starting point for everybody. I used to think the NASM corrective exercise certification was good. I took it. It is a bag of hot garbage. It is a lot of gimmicky stuff. It's a lot of pseudoscience. It's a lot of just inaccuracy, cherry picking research, blatantly false claims that's not backed by research. Just common gimmicky pyramid schemey marketing stuff. But again, that is not the trainer's fault. So a personal trainer new to training is coming into these organizations as a first entry level job. And then they are being pigeonholed into this philosophy of training. And that may be all they know. So now everybody is telling them to make a social media presence. That's how you arrive as a trainer, is to have a social media presence, and then you can get clients that way. So now they're doing their job that is prescribed to them. They don't know any better. They are being told this is the gold standard. That's very true. I have talked to trainers and managers that have said they always thought NASM was a gold standard. They've heard of NSCA, but NSCA is for strength coaches. A lot of them didn't even know NSCA had a personal training certification. ACSM has a personal training certification. If you're serious about personal training, go get NSCA or ACSM and don't buy into the NASM pyramid scheme. I'm telling you, please don't do that. ACSM and NSCA will take you farther and teach you more than NASM ever will for the value. NASM will teach you more as long as you keep paying for more. It's kind of Scientology-ish, if I could say that. We'll see what happens with YouTube on that one, but whatever. So the first point I guess I'm making here is that as strength coaches, we need to be a little more reserved when we judge the training that we see on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Now, if this is somebody who has a bunch of credentials to their name and has verifiable people that they've trained and they're still doing gimmicky stuff, a certain doctor that does 90-degree overcoming eccentric, that rhymes with Joel Heedman. Certain people like that, yeah, we can flame them all day because they clearly don't know what they're doing or talking about, even though they have the education and credentials behind them that they should. And even if they do know what they're talking about, they are willingly gimmicking or willingly committing fraud to the people they're training. I'm not getting into that one. That's a whole different conversation. But the people that just genuinely may not know better, I would challenge strength and conditioning to just take a step back and look at, is this something that they're just bound to do or bound to because of the organization they work for? We all know there's good CrossFit coaches out there, or CrossFit programming is, however we want to get into the weeds of CrossFit, where, CrossFit programming is good. It's just bad coaches. Or there's good coaches that like CrossFit and that's why they do it. However you need to spin it. But like, that's an example of bound to the organization that you're affiliated with. So like, there may be good strength coaches that use CrossFit, but are not tying themselves to CrossFit because they don't want to be 100%. They don't 100% agree with that philosophy. So I've talked before. I was always taught to be principle based, not philosophy based. Philosophies are NASM, OPT model, CrossFit. It's FMS. It's 5-5-3-1 Bulgarian. Those are philosophies, and I'm not saying philosophies are good and bad. They just are. But I was always taught to follow the principles of exercise science: progressive overload, linear periodization, the SAID principle, stuff like that, and then look at the philosophies and see if they mirror principles. If philosophies are principle based or not, that's what dictates a good philosophy. So with that in mind, I would challenge private sector to become more principle based. Now, it's tricky because the reason that the organization I'm with pushes NASM so hard is because of a supplement company that they also sell. Because those two companies are intertwined with each other, it's eggs of the same basket. So, but they're kind of limited on being principle based because they are corporately, contractually bound, whatever the things are, that they have to use the NASM OPT model because of this thing and this and whatever. I would just challenge personal trainers or private sector coaches to always become a genius in the principles and the basics, and then create your own philosophy from there. That's what every good coach does. Is I had a mentor, or I had a former boss of mine who used to say every good coach is a thief, where we take ideas from everybody else that's already done it, and then we refine our own philosophy based on everybody else's principles and philosophies. And that's always stuck with me. I mean, I'm not saying go steal somebody's programming, but you take bits and pieces of the programming that works for what you're trying to achieve, and then eventually you create your own philosophy around the principles you've been taught. So become a master in principles, not necessarily a slave to philosophy, if I have to put these in bullet points, right? So the second thing ties into that is program based on principles, program based on progression. I know it's a tricky model with private sector. You do not make money if people are not paying you for training. However, we cannot, what are we providing them if they're just coming to us, paying us for training, and then telling us how they want, like what they want to be trained on? If they tell me I want to gain muscle by doing men's health, um, Hugh Jackman workouts, and I just want you to guide me through them, that is fraud on our end. We are committing fraud by taking their money and then providing that disservice. Um, what would be the best conversation? And this is what I preach for everybody, especially if you have a problem sport coach. In my experience, track and field coaches have been notorious for this, where they say, they come to the strength coach and say, this is what I want us to do, because they've read some German or Russian or whatever track coach did this, and their runners or jumpers or whatever did really well. So they will try to dictate our strength and conditioning based on what they were taught or what they did in track and field. And the best approach to that I found is to meet them halfway. There is merit in what they are bringing you. There is something there that does work. And if you are a good coach, you are able to extract that philosophy, extract the principles out of that philosophy and see why it worked. From that, you should be able to interwork your philosophy and your principles and your programming ideas. And there should be a middle ground that works for both of you, where you can give them what they want in a way that accomplishes what you are trying to accomplish. And that is the same thing with the private sector. Is ultimately they are paying you for your expertise. They should not be paying you as just a workout partner or a friend. And that's even true in our corporate big box setting. It is they are paying us to provide them their service, and they are not paying us to be their friend. We do not want the trainers to be their friends. Um, but we are running into issues where people are coming to us and saying they don't like the style of training or whatever. Just remember, the clients have not been able to do it on their own. And a lot of them have tried. They've done ChatGPT. They've done whatever. But the mark of a good coach, ChatGPT can spit out a somewhat decent program, and it's only getting better. The program is not what's going to get the person results. The best program is the one that the client's going to do, right? So finding that middle ground, but sticking to the principles, having that conversation with them, which goes back to point number one of being an expert in the principles and the basics. Because we've had a lot of clients that we start them on the NASM stability phase, and they come in a week later and they're like, this has been terrible. I have no idea what I'm paying you for. All we've done is like stability ball dumbbell stuff, and we haven't even actually worked out yet. And they're not wrong. They are not incorrect in that. They are paying a lot of money to get personal training, and it's personal based on the overhead squat assessment, which I'm not even getting started on that right now. It's personalized based on that, but everybody's largely doing the same workouts. And I do want to caution that is going back to my episode before on specificity and all that stuff. 99.9999% of people do not need individualized programming. There are always anomalies, there's always outliers, there's always an exception to the rule. Most people who have not worked out in a long time need to improve overall motor function and ability of their body. That's mobility, flexibility. Those are two different things. Mobility is joints, flexibility is muscle. That's strength training, power development, speed to depending on who we're talking about. But yeah, they should be able to run. They should be able to, there's studies out there. I don't have them in front of me. Don't quote me on them. But like after 25 to 30 years old, most people will never sprint again in their life. And then, they tear a hamstring and doing a dare or something, right? So there should be some work capacity ability of the hamstrings, right? So we should be able to train these people with the basic movement patterns: squat, hinge, push, pull, throw, carry, jump, right? And then sprint is in there questionably, right? But they should all be able to check the boxes of basic movement patterns for longevity and health, right? Because ultimately in the private sector, in personal training, we are improving bone density, improving muscle mass, so that as we age, we can somewhat offset the 2 to 3% decrease or detriment we see with aging. that is only done through resistance training. That is done through large compound stress on the bone, stress on the muscle, resistance training. A additional, a additional variable to that is most personal training clients just want to lose weight. The best way we can lose weight is by increasing our muscle mass, which is done through tried and true resistance training. The more muscle we put on, the more calories we're burning as our basal metabolic rate, which means the more fat stores that we're burning through with that rest. So the best thing we can do for our clients is acknowledge, hey, I love that how enthusiastic you are about your training. I appreciate that you've done the research and you've come to me with this theory. Based on my expertise, here's where we can meet in the middle to accomplish what you're trying to do and the goals that we are set. You need to establish yourself as the expert, or else when their contract is up, however the gym is handling contracts, when their contract is up and they say, I didn't get any benefit from this, or whatever, hopefully they're saying, I want to renew because this trainer has done so much for me. Right. And that's going to be the second half to this podcast, is what can S&C learn from personal training? And that's the relationship. That is 100% the relationship side. Personal training is all about the relationship. It's about getting people with ambiguous goals, ambiguous dreams, aspirations, getting them to buy into your training, your philosophy, and paying a large amount of money to do this. S&C is easy. You have a lot of kids, whatever age, college through adolescent, who are required to come to you as a metric of participation in the sport. Your similar interest is the sport they are playing. You have conversation points of, did you eat? How's your hydration? How's your stress? How's school been? Like, you have fallbacks that you can do. Establishing buy-in for strength and conditioning should be very easy if you have ever talked to a human before. Personal training is much more difficult. You have clients from all walks of lives, all different backgrounds, all different, jobs, different income levels, different intellectual levels. Some may have been in the gym, some may have never been in the gym, right? Everybody's different. And that is what you have to manage. It's how you have to navigate. You have to be able to have and maintain a conversation with somebody while making sure you're staying on time for the session, making sure you're doing everything you're supposed to do, and you guys aren't just yapping the whole session and nothing gets done. All the while getting them the results they're looking for, truly. And the next point that personal trainers should take away from S&C, educating the client so they eventually can do it on their own. We tell clients in our sales process that we never want them to be a permanent client with us. We always want to teach them everything they need to know so that eventually they can go off on their own and they still know what they're doing with their diet, nutrition, their exercise and wellness, right? That should be the goal. You should be, if you're a personal trainer, educating your clients so that one day when you leave or one day when they leave, inevitably one of you are going to leave, that they don't need that service anymore. That the reason they're paying you is because they like you and they want that service, but they understand now when you guys enter a hypertrophy block, why it's important to build muscle for losing weight, right? They understand the why behind the what now because you've done your job to educate them. And the reason they continue to pay you is because you've built that relationship and you've established that buy-in with them. So that is something that S&C does really well, is educating the athletes on the why behind the what. And I think that's something personal training needs to do better with, but that's also something personal trainers need to learn and understand. Because personal training can very much be a part-time afternoon job for the soccer mom who, works a real day job that's her career, and then she does it on the side because she likes it. And that's something that I know the industry is trying to fix and regulate, but it's not happening anytime soon. So that is something that I don't know what the answer is or what the solution is and when that answer or solution is going to come about. So, what other points do we have that I've seen? Exercise selection and design. And that's just programming. That's principles again. So, again, with personal trainers, strength and conditioning is really good at exercise selection, progression, design, program design, sets, reps, volume, intensity, all that. It's easy because typically there's a schedule of in season, off season, preseason, postseason. Are we in a strength phase, power phase, hypertrophy phase, speed development phase? What are we doing with GPP work? There's so many factors that strength and conditioning coaches go to school to get a degree and take additional certifications in. Personal training again is not that deep, and it's unfortunate because I had a manager that I work with who him and I were discussing, the perceptions of personal trainers. And I was explaining to him that from the professional coaching side of things, the strength and conditioning coaching side of human performance, let's just call it that, personal trainers have a very bad rap because of social media, because of gimmicks, because of fraud, right? All the things I've been talking about. And he told me, he's like, I don't understand though, because personal trainers see a larger or help a larger number of people than strength and conditioning coaches do. And I do not disagree with that. I told him I do not disagree with that. And I also told him that is the problem, is that when a personal trainer messes up or is doing something gimmicky or is just call it what it is, giving a bad look on the industry, that is a bad look on the industry. So now you have professional strength coaches and personal trainers on TikTok or Instagram, and the general population does not know the difference. So when that is the problem, is that when somebody gets hurt in general population because of gimmicky exercises, that makes the entire industry look bad as, fitness is just all this gimmicky crap, or it's a bunch of influencers in, gyms just looking in their mirror all day and filming themselves. And that is also the perception of strength and conditioning to the general population, who is not helping as many people, but strength and conditioning is helping more athletes in the correct way, but they don't have time to do social media because we're doing professional work. We're running teams, we're running lifts, we're programming, we're in meetings. Like it's our job, it's our career, it's our profession. Whereas again, some personal trainers that may be giving a bad look to the industry, it could just be a part-time social media job for them. So that is the problem with that perception. But that's also the problem with the lack of regulation at all of the industry. The fact that NASM can exist with pseudoscience claims and false claims and cherry-picked research and citing research that doesn't even say what they're trying to make it say, without any oversight or anybody coming down on them other than other organizations. But there's no repercussion for them spouting misinformation, right? There's no repercussion for these influencers spouting misinformation and potentially getting people hurt by my program, and then somebody does it and it's not proper loading, it's not proper exercise selection, and somebody gets hurt. There's no repercussions on that trainer because it's an implied liability, it's implied consent, and that is what's going to keep the industry held back. I hate that I always finish these podcasts on a negative note like this with what's holding us back as an industry, but health and medicine, like the medical community, will never take health, wellness, fitness seriously as long as we keep allowing this to happen, as long as we keep allowing bad practices in that front facing, in our most public facing view. I work, the gym I work at is right down the street from a medical center. Fortunately, I am given most of the clients that need the most help, need the most work, have the most disabilities limitations. So I'm able to, because I'm trusted and because I'm able to help them in a logical, progressive way that is outside of NASM or any nonsense that's happening with that. But that's one. I'm one person at one gym. That's not to say gyms outside medical centers, doctors and health professionals are walking in, seeing people on Bosu balls doing nonsense, and they said, yeah, this is why fitness is a joke. And then they walk out and they prescribe drugs instead of exercise and diet. That's why the ACSM is having such a hard time at the congressional level getting fitness recognized as medical intervention because of the gimmicky, fraudulent stuff that's happening. I've been Coach Mike. This has been Strength Coach Thoughts Podcast. Make sure you use code Coach Mike at Vertical Athletics and code Coach Mike 311 at C4 Energy for discounts on those products. Make sure you stay tuned for the next episode. If you like this video, make sure you leave a like, you comment, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anybody that you think might get value from this. I'll see you next time.